All right, Mazarine, okay if I get us started officially?
Yes.
All right, great. Well, good afternoon, everyone on the East Coast, and good morning if you are on the West Coast or somewhere in between. Thanks for joining us for today's Bloomerang webinar, Think Bigger and Get Bolder with Your Nonprofit Growth. And my name is Stephen Shattuck, and I'm the Chief Engagement Officer over here at Bloomerang, and I'll be moderating today's discussion as always. And just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. I want to let everyone know that we are recording this presentation, and I'll be sending out that recording later on this afternoon, as well as the slides, just in case you didn't already get those. So if you have to leave early, or perhaps you want to review the content later on, you'll be able to do that. Have no fear. Just look for that email from me in just a couple hours. I'll get that in your hands pretty quickly. And as you are listening today, please feel free to chat in any questions or comments you have. I'm going to see those, and so will our guest throughout the hour. So don't be shy. We're going to save some time towards the end of the presentation to get to as many of those as possible, and maybe even more offline. So don't be shy at all. We'd love to hear your questions and comments. You can do the same on Twitter if you're into that kind of thing. You can send us a tweet at #Bloomerang or at @BloomerangTech. And just one final technical note, these webinars are usually only as good as your own internet connection. So if you have any trouble, especially with the audio, we find that the audio by phone is usually better quality. So if you have a phone nearby and don't mind listening to it on the phone, check the email from ReadyTalk that went out about an hour ago, and it has a phone number in that just for you that you can use to listen in. And if this is your first Bloomerang webinar, I want to say a special welcome to you folks. We do these webinars just about every Thursday. We love doing them. We always love to see new faces each Thursday. But if you are not familiar with Bloomerang, if Bloomerang is a new company to you, we offer donor management software. So if you're interested in that, or maybe just want to learn more about Bloomerang, check out our website. You can click the demo button at the top of the homepage and even watch a quick video recording of the software in action. Don't even have to talk to a salesperson if you don't want to. So check us out if that's of interest to you, if you want to learn more. But for now, I am super excited to introduce one of the best humans that I know. Always great to have Mazarine Treyz here on our webinar series. How's it going, Mazarine?
Oh, hey, Stephen, you always make me blush. Thank you.
It's well deserved. I feel really lucky. I got to see you just a couple months ago in San Fran. We're doing this webinar. Mazarine's awesome. I just want to brag on her for a minute here before I turn it over to her. If you don't know her, she's the CEO over at Wild Woman Fundraising. You got to bookmark that website. Excellent content. She's super smart. She likes to give really good pep talks. I always feel really energized after hearing her speak or listening to a webinar. She's nationally recognized. If you see her name on a conference agenda, please go to her session. She's created over 12 e-courses, 3 master classes. She's written 3 books. I've got one of them on my bookshelf right behind me. And she has worked with over 12,000 nonprofits since 2010. That's a huge number, Mazarine. I don't know how you sleep, but I'm super excited to hand it over to you to tell us all about some cool things you're seeing in the industry and just share all your knowledge. So take it away, my friend.
All right, I will. Thank you so much, Stephen. I'm really happy to be doing a webinar for Bloomerang today, and also I'm really happy I got to come to BloomCon. Thanks again so much for inviting me. And if anybody here hasn't yet been to BloomCon, pretty fun time. So today we're going to talk about how to think bigger and get bolder with your nonprofit growth. If you want to tweet today, you can @ me at Wild Woman Fund. And so without further ado, let's get started. So Stephen bragged on me a little bit already. This is a bit more about me. I'm one of us. I have risen from development intern to development director. I've also co-founded a nonprofit. I've taught a lot of people how to fundraise. I wouldn't say I've individually taught them specifically, but if you want some free stuff from me, check out wildwomanfundraising.com/free-stuff. And I also run a couple of online conferences, the Fundraising 3-Year Conference and the Nonprofit Leadership Summit, and we have had over 1,000 attendees in the last 3 years. So I'll tell you a little bit more about that, and this is a special offer for you for attending today on this webinar. if you really want to get creative with your funding streams for 2018, you want to join us at the annual Nonprofit Leadership Summit. It's September 18th, 20th, and 22nd. It's online. And you can learn more at register.nonprofitleadershipsummit.com. I'll even give you a coupon code for $100 off until July 30th. It's So Sweet 100, but you have to capitalize it. So, all right. And I'll tell you more about that later. So now here's our first poll question, and feel free to use the chat pane to answer. Do you feel like you have a lot of competition for funds? Yes, maybe, depends, or no, we're totally unique. So a lot of people are saying A, or a couple of people are saying B, but there's a lot of yeses. Looks like it's actually back and forth on this, but more A's than B's I'm seeing. Good to know. Yeah, so a lot of people, most people are saying yes, there's a lot of competition for funds. Well, thanks everybody for sharing. Right now we're going to be talking about ways you can set yourself apart. And in this particular funding climate that we find ourselves in, we are seeing a lot of nonprofits being defunded. With healthcare being so uncertain right now, in the U.S. with environmental funding going away, what's already hurt a few nonprofits that I know, with Meals on Wheels funding being threatened. There's really a lot to consider here about how are we going to survive the next several years and set ourselves apart and be successful. And so today I really want to focus on what can we do. We don't have to feel powerless by whatever's at the federal government level. We can think of ways to overcome this dreadful competition for funding, and today we're going to be talking about how to do that. So here's poll question 2. Are you looking for a way to get out of the grant cycle? A, OMG, yes, so hard not knowing if we'll get funded again next year. B, maybe, depends. Or C, no, we love writing grants. And it's totally okay to say no, or B, or A. So looks like we get a lot of B's. Yeah, and some of us are saying C. Excellent. So yeah, grants are good. Grants are good. Don't get me wrong. It's just that grants are just the tiniest tip of the iceberg when it comes to money in this country. And there's so many more options out there that can be much more stable for you. So good, Kelly. Excellent. Good to know. All right. Now, next poll question. What are you hoping to get out of today? Find ways to innovate. A, B, look at nonprofit trends, or C, something else. One person said all of the above. A lot of people say A and B. Excellent. A lot of people saying A. Very good. Okay. Wonderful. Both of that. All right. Good, good, good. Okay. We are going to be talking about both of these things. First, we're going to look at trends. So here's what you're going to learn today. We're going to look at the 2016 Atlas of Giving Trends. We'll talk about what Next Level Fundraising is. We'll have some case studies. We'll help you cut out what's not working and determine your needs. We'll also look at your market, what makes you unique. Try it and refine it. Look at the hurdles to implementing, help you create systems, and we'll also address some common misunderstandings about Next Level Fundraising. So here is the Atlas of Giving Trends. So giving is flat or down across the board. And charitable giving is down, especially in churches. So this is kind of small on my screen. I'm not sure if it's small on your screen. But you can see here at the top that in 2015, this was the amount of money that was given away. And in 2016, this was the amount of money that was given away. And it's just slightly down in just about every part here in bequests and foundation giving and corporate giving and individual giving. So the number of donors is going down. And my theory about why this is partially because we're not doing a very good job of finding new donors and keeping our donors, which we should be looking at. We're not paying attention to our pipeline of donors at all. But also, we are not really thinking about how to diversify our funding streams. And so you can see here, this is where people get the majority of the money here on the right-hand side. This is religion. And then we have a bunch of other sectors as well, but religion gets the most money because they really do pay attention to retention and they ask every week. And a lot of us can't do that. So that's something to think about. So here is the next slide. So the giving forecast for 2016 is that it's going to go down. And in 2017, because of the economic and political uncertainty, we're probably going to see it either remain flat or go down again. And so I've actually talked with Rob, who's the head of Atlas of Giving, and they have an algorithm that shows just like all of these ways why they can predict this. But this is something for us to consider as a long-term strategy. You know, even if we have grants, that's just a very, very small piece of the pie. And even if we have individuals, are we really doing the best that we can to cultivate and help them stay? Is there something else we could be doing to stand apart and to make this better? So here's normal fundraising. In normal fundraising, you're competing in an increasingly crowded market. The water is red with blood. So there's a bunch of sharks and everyone's just trying to get the same donors. But in next level fundraising, you float above the red water and you think long term. You engage in strategic fundraising. You might have diversified fundraising strategies, but you'll have more effective fundraising. So you're floating above here because there's nobody else competing with you. So here's an example of a nonprofit doing that. There's a nonprofit here in Portland, Oregon called Central City Concern. And they're a homelessness nonprofit. They also help homeless people get jobs. They have them clean office buildings, and they help them build their resume to go on and do other things. So they do that, but what they also do is they create bed-bug-free beds for other homeless shelters and bed-bug-free chairs and tables as well. And they have a special design that they've created, and they sell it to other homeless shelters around the country. No one else was doing this until they did it. So that's their blue ocean. And I'm not saying that you have to create a product to make a blue ocean, but we're going to look at some more examples of this in the private sector. So back one. So Yellowtail versus the wine companies. So the California wine industry is completely saturated. There's hundreds and hundreds of wineries all up and down the coast. They all have very special wine, I'm sure. So this little upstart company from Australia came in and said, hey, you know, we're going to start selling wine and we're going to enter this market. And everyone would be laughing. I'm like, yeah, right. And they're like, and we're going to sell it really cheap. And we're going to like put on Australian pith helmets and, you know, go to these wine stores and say, good day, mate, want to try our wine? So they actually went to a bunch of different places in the U.S. and sort of like help people try it. And as everybody here knows, Yellowtail wine is really cheap. It's like $3 or $4 or something like that. Probably not more than $7. And it's not a very complex flavor. It's sort of sweet and fruity. And what they were trying to do was not get the snooty wine drinkers who were already buying the snooty wines to buy their wine. They were trying to get beer drinkers to drink wine, and they succeeded in that. So that's something to think about as you look at this. Like, wow, they came into this totally crowded market, and yet they succeeded because they offered something different, and they got customers who weren't even buying that wine. And so when you think about your donor pipeline, think about people who are not giving to anybody, you know, or maybe they're not giving to you yet, or maybe they need something that you have but they don't know it. Why would they come to you? Maybe you could rent out your conference room. You know, maybe there's other ways to look at, you know, how do we slice this income onion, you know? You don't have to do it the same old way. Here's another one, for example, circuses. Ringling Brothers versus Cirque du Soleil. So Ringling Brothers and Barnum & Bailey have had issues in the last several years. They have had, you know, people saying we don't want to have animals be treated this way. there's things going on in 3 rings at once. Nobody can pay attention or keep track of that, or people don't like clowns or whatever it is. And so Cirque du Soleil came in and they said, okay, we're going to create a blue ocean by taking all these people who have trained for gymnastics their whole life, or dancers, and we're going to employ them, and we're going to create these incredible spectacles. And we're going to take people who would have gone to the opera or the theater and make them go to our circus. And we're going to use people as animals and not use animals. So as you can see here, they've been wildly successful. They've spawned imitators. You have to pay hundreds of dollars for a ticket to Cirque du Soleil. And they put on a good show. I've never been, but I hear that it's just incredible. So if anybody here has been to Cirque du Soleil, let me know how it was. So this is a way that you can start thinking about how can we build donors out of people who maybe have never heard of us, or maybe need something that we have and we just haven't offered it to them yet. So Pilata Teamworks is another example of a for-profit company. They created a fun platform for people to get involved, long bike rides once a year for AIDS, sponsored by their friends, family, or company. And they had tons and tons of money that they raised for cancer. And they had to shut down, as if anybody here has read Uncharitable by Dan Pilata knows, because they were quote unquote making too much money. And then next year when the cancer charities tried to run it on their own, they made far less money. And it's unfortunate, that people think that just because you're in a nonprofit that virtue should be its own reward. I think virtue should be its own reward if we live in a world without money. Then sure. But otherwise, we should get paid for our work, and we should get paid well, no matter who we are. So it's unfortunate that he had to stop doing that, but I feel like he has brought to light some really interesting issues with our sector that I think we still need to work on. So in Next Level Fundraising, as I said, you float in a blue ocean where no one else competes with you, and you differentiate yourself, but you also provide higher donor value at a lower cost. And you also find donors from people who were non-givers. But how does that look? So you want to ask yourself, what can we raise, eliminate, create, and reduce? So what can we create? So for example, Central City Concern is creating a new thing. Maybe we could eliminate some costs that we simply don't need to have anymore. Maybe we want to sell our building and just rent. Maybe we want to reduce the friction between when a donor first hears of us to when they give. And maybe there's some speed bumps in there that we could be smoothing out for them. Maybe we want to raise awareness for our cause, but also raise people's ideas of what's possible. So there's a lot of things to think about in raising, creating, eliminating, and reducing. Here's your first case study. I know we have a Meals on Wheels on today. This will be interesting to you. And anybody else who isn't a Meals on Wheels, I still think that you should look at this as problem to solution and think about if we have a really big problem, maybe we can get creative with solutions like this Dallas County Meals on Wheels did. So the big problem for them was that their waiting list was 4 years. They said we need to expand by 78% to almost 7,000 meals delivered per day. So how are they going to do that? Solution, they needed to raise $17 million. They've raised $6 million so far. They had $1 million for food from a leadership donor. They had $1.5 million from technology from that same leadership donor. And this person was a volunteer. They delivered meals, former board member, and been their champion for 34 years. So when you are thinking about how can we really innovate in our nonprofits, this is something to think about. These are the people that you want to cultivate that have these ideas, maybe old board members, maybe volunteers that have been with you forever. They might have something that you don't know that they're just waiting to share with you. Or you just invite them to the table for a brainstorming session, and they'll be so gratified that you want their advice. So the technology piece, they're using 4 different pieces to serve their clients more effectively. They're using this thing called Fundly, which is still in beta, that helps them revamp their volunteer management system with an app to let staff and hospital know immediately if there's an issue with a client. So they can just take them right there if they see that they've had a stroke or something like that, or a heart attack, they can get the ambulance there right away and take them to the hospital. The All Scripts, it connects to, so it links back to elder care and hospice care. So instantly everybody's notified if they need care, and so it creates a continuum of care. So it's improving their service delivery. It's not just about, let's throw some technology in there because apps are cool and let's see what happens. No, No, this is actually hopefully saving lives at this point. They also use UPS RoadNet, which delivers meals in a concentrated area using half volunteers and half paid drivers. So they don't have people like going back and forth all over town. They're saving gas. They're saving money by doing this. And people are getting more consistently delivered meals because they're paying people. Also, they use PCCI, which connects hospitals to us in real-time referrals. So if they are going to go visit somebody, but it turns out they're in the hospital, they just say don't worry about it because there's no need to visit, that person is in the hospital. And so unfortunately for a lot of people that Meals on Wheels visits, they are homebound, and a lot of times they do have to go out for hospital treatment, or they're in the hospital for a health-related reason, so obviously. So anyway, that's helping them stay more efficient and aware, and helping create a way for all of the caregivers around a person to know exactly what they need when they need it, without having to have that lapse in time between, when does their primary care physician get notified, all of that stuff. So Fundly is an innovation in earned income because this donor insists that Dallas County makes this replicable and scalable and get a referral fee for when Fundly sells the software to other Meals on Wheels programs so they can be more sustainable. So that's kind of neat, and I'm hoping that other Meals on Wheels do look at this. But imagine if you had a champion leadership donor that could help you use technology to, if you're a chapter nonprofit, help nonprofits all over the country deliver services better, whether you're doing education with kids or maybe at-risk kids, and you want to make sure to talk with the teachers, the parents, the maybe like the tutors, or all at once, just being able to keep everybody in the loop. Or maybe you're an environmental nonprofit and there's another app that would really help people track birds or track other issues that your cause has, maybe an app to sign petitions. You never know until you brainstorm this. So why was this successful? Because they had a good proposal to the leadership donor. They had a good application to the donor's foundation. They had good reporting to the donor about progress, and a good board member with knowledge of tech who is the champion of the campaign. So your lessons include, from this, hire a major gifts fundraising person, because that person is going to help you cultivate these people that are going to be the champions of your innovation. Maybe get a tech-savvy board member. If you don't know anybody yet, go do a speaking engagement at a tech company in your town and ask for board members. Look at current database for longest term, most loyal supporters. And is there a way to make earned income through technology or by partnering with healthcare? That's something to think about, and that's something that Meals on Wheels National is thinking about right now. So do you think any of this is doable for your nonprofit? Feel free to type in the Q&A pane. How does this make you feel? Do you think it's doable? I'd love to hear. Judy said, absolutely doable. Mitzi said, yes. Doris said, it's doable but scary. Yeah. Kelly said, yes, we have awesome supporters. Rebecca said, yes, it's just taking time to develop those relationships. Excellent. Katie said, yes, we have untapped board potential. Karen said, nonprofits about traditional art forms, so it's hard to know how to utilize technology. Oh, yeah, Karen, that's a really interesting, you could brainstorm, because even the most simple art forms at one time were extremely revolutionary. And you could, there's a lot of things you could do, but we could talk about that later. So Cynthia said, I have to give this some thought to figure out new ideas. Yeah. Judy said, get the entire team on board, empower them with positive info, and most will get moving. Yes. Yes. Barbara said, it's possible with teamwork and approval from management. Jessica said, the problem is nonprofits don't have the money. It's hard being cost effective. I totally get that, Jessica, and that's kind of why we talked about why this worked, because leadership donors stepped in and were champions of it, but they wouldn't have stepped in unless they had hired a major gifts fundraiser, unless they'd started to create and build those relationships. So yeah. All right, so here's another case study, Savannah. So this is a more traditional model. Check this out. They went from under $1 million budget to a $9.5 million budget in 15 years. And I talked to their executive director. Now they're doing their first capital campaign in 57 years. And she said, the more you can do, the cheaper your unit cost is and the further your grants go. And if you can get the price cheaper, you can serve more with the same amount of money. So what she does is her lessons are, do not depend on government funding. We do a lot more than just meals. We want to be the place people turn to for answers, a care manager, et cetera. So they want to be a one-stop. And they want to rebrand for the health aspect, not just convenience. So these meals are a healthy choice, and they give people a choice. So they're like, we're the place of first choice, not the place of last resort. So what they do is they actually try to make their commercial kitchen be in use 24 hours a day. And here is their website. And you can see they're showing all the things that they do. It's not just meals. They do all these other things. And you can see here it says senior companions, care advisors, adult daytime care, rides, senior angels, in-home care, and neighborhood centers. All of these things, as well as people who want to learn, they help them learn. So that's an example here. Here's another way that a nonprofit can be a one-stop. It's Livestrong Foundation. So when you get to their website, they know that when people seek them out, it's either they have cancer or someone else in their family has cancer or their friend does. And so they have free cancer support. You can call them. They talk about the cancer journey. They have resource guides. They have common concerns. They're a one-stop for people with cancer. And they even have like a magazine about it, a special blog about it with health tips. And so they're really trying to be a one-stop for everything related to their cause. So imagine if you could put on this hat for a second and think possibilities. What if we could be a one-stop for everything related to our cause, even if it's just a list of resources, even if people are just finding out about us, why are we special, why are we different? How can we support people when they have a problem? What is the number one problem they have when they come to our website, and how can we solve that problem? So for a nonprofit that I've helped for the last several years, it's called Food on Foot in LA, the people's number one problem when they came to their website was, how do I volunteer with you? Because they're high up in Google results. And so they put volunteering front and center on their site. And so multiple places on the front page lead you to, here's how you volunteer, here's how you sign up, come and deliver meals to the homeless or feed homeless people on a Sunday. And they just get tremendous response from that. They get monthly donors from that. They innovated, and it was with their website, and they succeeded. And now they have 450 monthly donors, and they're getting about $40,000 a month. So they're a very tiny nonprofit, and they're extremely successful with what they do. And they've spread out their risk, and they're not dependent on just one grant or just one major donor. And that's another way that, for being a one-stop for just feeding the homeless in LA, they succeeded, and that was just one thing they did. So for case study for Savannah, they rebranded as the first choice, not the last resort. They asked themselves, how do we continuously improve? How do we get bigger and better? Who else needs meals? Who else is providing lunch? Can we cater homeless shelters, mental health day rehab? Can we do catering for businesses? Or United Way, that's what they're doing right now. How can we use our assets, for example, this kitchen, 24 hours a day? So that's how they went from under $1 million budget to a $10 million budget in 15 years. Now that's not like get rich quick, but it is something that they built up over time. They built up their relationship, and they are now extremely successful at this. So what do you think? Do you think this is doable for your nonprofit? I'd love to hear. Type it in. Renee said, absolutely. Jessica said, maybe. Samira said, yes. Heather said, we have to narrow our scope to become a one-stop shop. Oh, that's interesting. So usually one-stop shops is like broadening your scope. Kathleen said, I love the idea of using our assets beyond our services. Michelle said, we feel like a one-stop shop. We need to get the message out better. Nice. Shasta said, absolutely. We just have to show them that we're not here to take their money, but to support them. Katie said, how do you make yourself a one-stop shop when you're extremely local? You just provide resources on the line, right, Katie? So the number one question people have coming to your website, can you just make a post about that and post it, or resources that the typical person needs. Nicole said, being a one-stop is deeply connected to our mission. Excellent. Roy said, where do you start when you are a small full-time employee shop? Well, Roy, where Food on Foot is, they're very small. You might want to just ask yourself, what's the number one question people have when they come to us? Where are they in their lives? Like, what do they need? What's their number one problem? And then try to solve that problem right on the front page of your website. Anybody can write a website page. Anybody here can do that. I don't care how small you are. Logan said, yeah, a website redesign is doable, but a tiny org, we're already pretty extended at the edges of our resources. Sure. So maybe it's time to focus on what you do the best and just do that. And that's what we're talking about later on, so let's keep going. So your SWOT, that's what you do the best. So SWOT, right? If anybody here doesn't know what that is, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. So strengths, meals or more than a meal, home repair, medication monitoring. Meals on Wheels doesn't do all this. They connect you to people that do. So they're small, but they help you get connected to the case management people, the financial literacy people. They come to us for answers. The typical weaknesses are that we don't think bigger about how to stay competitive. There are for-profit competitors for Meals on Wheels like Blue Apron and so on. Your weaknesses are that you're comfortable doing what you've always done, the business model is becoming anachronistic, or the board doesn't want to change. Your opportunities are, older Americans need meals no matter their income. We rebrand as One Stop for all things seniors. Sure, you can connect people with resources, right? You don't have to do it all yourself. Food is medicine, renting out your kitchen to small businesses. They also did a PSA for younger volunteers. Threats, so importance of knowing your environment. For-profits try to take our market. Survive and thrive, how do I stay competitive? Maybe how do I partner better? I'm not partnering very well right now, and that's a threat. And feeling isolated. So, a lot of us do feel isolated when we're executive directors, when we're founders, and we really need that support. So cut out what's not working. If you have something that's not really working very well, maybe where are we falling short of our target consistently? Is it our year-end appeal? Is it our spring appeal? Is it our fundraising event? Is it crowdfunding, telemarketing, grants, or TV newspaper advertising? Wherever it is that we're just, for fundraising, for example, not really hitting our targets, can we just drop that without any consequences? Are we doing programs that really aren't covering their costs in terms of grants or money brought in? Is there something that we could let go of that we don't do very well and do something else? So for example, I worked at the Urban League in Portland, and we had senior services programs that we did really well at. We had a youth program that we didn't really do very well at, and we had an advocacy program that was brought on because there was an employee that was really good at it. And so then when I left, they started chasing the anti-obesity grants that the government was giving out at that time. And I was just looking at that going, why are they doing this? They're not about this at all. This is not mission. This is mission creep. So that's an example of something that you could stop doing because it's not really who you are. So if you feel like you're already stretched to the bounds, to the limit of extension of like whatever you're doing, how can you pull back in and refocus and reframe? Because some people right now feel like they're there. So I hear you and I understand that. So how can you pull back in and just focus on what's making you the most money? And I'll tell you this right now, major gifts and monthly giving are one of the best ways to make money for your nonprofit, more than events, more than grants, even if you like grants. I'm not trying to offend anybody. I like grants too. But you have to diversify. So determine your needs. What do you need the money for? What's a new program you could try if you've already pulled in and now you can feel like you can push out again? Who could you sell products and services to? How can you become a one-stop for people who come to your site, for those you serve? Even if it's just connecting them with resources. How could you leverage a current program and make it more enticing to volunteers and donors? And then look at similar nonprofits in town, regionally, nationally. It's not just a marketing strategy. It's not just a cost-cutting strategy. And it doesn't mean that you have to add new programs. So I thought I would insert a joke here because it's all pretty serious. So most people don't realize just how vast our great nation is. Truly amazing. As you can see here, there's inside the U.S., we can see Europe, Australia, South America, Africa, and a small U.S. So anyway, this is just very silly. Moving on. So when you think about setting yourself apart and you don't want to add anything new, think about how you treat your donors. So look at other nonprofits treat their donors. Like, how often do they communicate? Oh, yes, thank you, Gail. Don't leave out Alaska and Hawaii, please. Oh, yeah, I should have. Well, that wasn't me, but yeah. Their volunteer offerings, how they advertise, the degree of automation they have in donor communications, how much appreciation they do for donors and volunteers. What are their programs? How slick is their design? Do they have a monthly giving program or a major donor program? So if you look at all of these things, for the top competitors in your state, or the top competitors in your county, or even nationally, how do they do this? So if you're a animal shelter, for example, you want to be looking at the national and thinking, they're doing really well. How could we take one little piece of what they're doing well and do that well too? Because that's the standard that people are going to judge us by, and we need to start slowly ramping up to looking better, being better to our donors, and communicating more effectively with them so that we keep them and they stay. So why don't you make a small donation to your competitor or to a partner and say, okay, I can say, here's the email they sent me, but oh, they didn't call me because it was a large donation. Did they advertise? Did they have better volunteer offerings than we do? You can do this with just maybe just the national and then the one that's nearest to you, and just see that. Is their monthly giving program attractive? Is it more attractive than ours? Do they highlight it on the front page of their website? The answer for the National Humane Society, yes, yes, and yes. Definitely, they do. So for a tiny nonprofit in LA, they also advertise their monthly giving program on their homepage. If you don't yet do that, think about doing it. So look at us in relation to other nonprofits. And ask yourself now, how do we compare? How do we treat our donors? How often do we communicate? What's the quality of our volunteer offerings? How do we advertise? Do we have any automation in our donor communications? Do we email people and say, thanks for signing up for our newsletter. Here's what you can expect. And then a couple of days later, do we also say, hey, here's some events we have coming up. We'd love to see you there. We don't do that. That's just something that is even built into MailChimp these days. So if you have free e-newsletter software like MailChimp, you can do this. It just takes a couple of, maybe it takes a day to figure it out. How much appreciation do we do for donors and volunteers? If we could do more, because volunteers give 10 times as much as non-volunteers, and we could be better at that. What are our programs? How do we differentiate those? Are we slick with our design? If not, okay, could we make it a teeny tiny bit slicker by maybe getting a $60 WordPress template? Do we have an attractive monthly giving program or a major donor program? Is it highlighted on our site? So try it and refine it. And let it be okay to make mistakes with this. Can we make a better offering for meals or volunteer opportunities or monthly giving or major gifts or earned income or something else? Here's the hurdles you're going to have to overcome as you start to try to implement these changes. Maybe a cognitive hurdle. The org is mired in status quo, but we've always done things this way. Resource hurdle. Limited staff time and resources. What could we automate to free up staff time? What are things we could stop doing? So for example, if somebody in your office, like your ED, is doing your books, could you farm that out to an accountant? Could you do that? If yes, do it. Is your ED also doing the HR functions? That's not okay. Could you farm that out too? Could a board member take that on? Is there something else you could farm out that you don't do well that you'd like to just let someone else take care of, like running your annual event? Maybe there's somebody you could pay some nominal amount to do that, or whatever you want to do with that, and then let that fall off your plate so you can focus on the things that you do really well. Because you won't stop feeling overwhelmed if you don't let things get delegated and fall off your plate in a good way. So political hurdle, opposition from the board. This is not where we want to take this nonprofit. That's okay. You do have to listen to them. But you might want to say to them, look, we do have more competition for funds with grants, and there's fewer and fewer donors every year according to national statistics. So we need to be creative to think about how we're going to survive into the future, or we need to be doing succession planning and thinking about how to pass off our programs to other nonprofits, because we can't just keep going the same way we always have and think that this is going to be good enough, because it's not. So maybe your staff is unmotivated, and that's something else too. Making a monthly giving program is hard. Can't we just get more grants? Yeah, you can get more grants, but if you look at the pie, you're missing 75 cents of a dollar if you don't look more at individuals, and that can really hurt you in the long run. So think about your value proposition, your profit proposition, your people proposition. How do you reframe what you currently do to be unique? So what some people are doing is systematically finding customers for meals. They streamline their meal system delivery, and they brainstorm sessions on the regular. So they read business books and they sit around and talk about it. That's what they do. It's not rocket science. You want to create fundraising systems. That's really important. So what's your donor cultivation cycle? What's your subscriber cultivation cycle? What's your major donor cultivation cycle? What are your goals and deadlines around these, and who's responsible for these, and how can you eliminate barriers? So it's not about being donor-centric. That's the myth. It's just about creating new donors out of non-donors. Maybe new earned income streams become new donors. Who is not giving? Why are they not giving? And how can you offer something of unique value to tap into that group? So for example, homelessness nonprofit offering homeless people selling newspapers. I'm not going to donate to that homelessness nonprofit, but I am going to buy that newspaper because they have really good reporting. So that's an income stream for them because they decided to make something I wanted to buy. Myth, you have to make new programs. No, you don't. You can keep doing what you're doing, but you might offer new options to new markets, new volunteer opportunities, new packaging, new ways to get involved, new taglines, or reframe what you're doing in another way. Here's an example. The Global Autism Project had an existing edutourism program. It was small, badly marketed, poorly funded. They were creating an autism therapist test prep program. They marketed it to Facebook, and they used that pool to draw more into their edutourism program. They expanded it, and by the way, they help a lot more people with autism around the world now. So it's a mission-focused income stream that makes them exponentially more money. When I talked to them last year, when I first talked to them, they were making maybe $35,000 a year, and last year they were on track to make $500,000. So no matter how small you think you are right now and how unsurmountable all of this seems, you can do this. You really can. Molly did it when she was sleeping on people's couches, and that was the first 8 years. And she's like, I don't know what's ever going to change. And then we worked together, and then she said, oh yeah, I could offer what Elder Hostel is offering, and I can do it better, and I can make it more meaningful, and I can get autism therapists to have cultural competency. So even though she had nothing, she started with nothing, she went somewhere, did this, and now she's got staff. She's got teams all over the world that she's working with in Indonesia, in Kenya, in India, and she's truly succeeding in this. And she's helping so many communities understand autism. She's saving lives. She's literally saving lives. And she's doing this because she decided to think bigger and get bolder with her earned income streams. So myth, you have to have new technologies. You don't. You could automate more stuff, just like in MailChimp. But if you did want to have new technology, with Entreport, for example, you can automate, and this is what Molly uses, new donor onboarding, new subscriber onboarding, reminder emails when monthly giver credit cards bounce, postcards and SMS messages for campaigns. It does it all in there. Myth, we have to be a first mover in a space. No, you don't have to. Competitors just prove the market. So Molly had Autism Speaks, and she had Elder Hostel, and she's like, great, we're going to do something totally different, and they succeeded. She offered something valuable and different. So next level strategy and differentiation strategy are not synonymous. No, you can raise and create, but you also need to look at what you can eliminate and reduce to drive down your costs. So is it the same as innovation? No. It's about value innovation for donors, stakeholders, and volunteers. So is there a way to use volunteers that will help you serve your cause more effectively? Is there a way to satisfy more stakeholders more with providing less effort? So here's how you can take action today. Here's just a research project for your intern. Who else is active in our space? You could probably name it on your hand too. Locally, regionally, nationally, internationally. And then how do we offer something different? Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to ask, what can we create, raise, reduce, and eliminate? And what's costing you a lot right now? How can we eliminate and reduce? So for example, fundraiser turnover costs you $200,000 every time a fundraiser turns over. So you might think, oh, but we're not paying people that much. Well, even if you're paying them $50,000, this is based on research by Sophie Burke and donor-centered leadership. So for 30 years, she's researched this, and she's correct. She's talked to, oh golly, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of nonprofits about this. So if you want to think about reducing fundraiser turnover, can you appreciate your fundraiser more? Can you give them more vacation time? Can you, if something is not money that you can offer them, can you offer them a better title? These things don't cost money, but they mean a lot. So how can we eliminate the time it takes to get a response and a thank you from a donation? It's called keeping your good fundraiser. If you want donor retention, you have to have fundraiser retention. So how can we create a more donor value for a lower cost? That's something to think about. So what barriers do we anticipate for this new strategy? Cognitive barriers, political barriers, staff motivation, resource barriers. What's a strategy to overcome each? So a lot of us are feeling overwhelmed. I know I am a lot of the time. Sometimes I feel like I'm in this room and I say, look at all this work I haven't done yet. I'm at the top of the mountain with Julie Andrews. And that could look like your desk. And I hear you. My desk is completely messy. But the good thing is, if you're messy, it means you're really smart. And you can definitely still overcome your mess and do some innovation and some cost cutting and some making new donors out of non-donors at your nonprofit. So what action are you going to take from today? Are you going to think about how we can create, raise, reduce, and eliminate? That's A. Is it B, do research on what the other people offer? Is it C, anticipate and plan for barriers? Is it D, do a SWOT? Or E, something else? I'd love to hear. Oh, Nicole said D. Excellent. Mary said A, Leanne and Kelly said A, B, and C. Allison's A and C. Excellent. Heather said B and D. Good. We're getting lots of good answers here. Melanie said E, dig into what people are coming to our website. Yeah, because those could be non-donors you can turn into donors. You know, Jessica said all of the above. Nice. Katie said A and B. Good. David said A, B, and C. Good. And Susan said B, C, and D. Excellent. Good, good, good. All right, everybody. Thank you for sharing that. I would like to invite you to join us at the Nonprofit Leadership Summit online, where we're going to be talking about how we can move forward, finding new donors. That is what Ellen Bristol is going to be talking about. I'd like to invite you to have a session with Andy Robinson as well at the Leadership Summit. He's been talking about how to get your board members to fundraise, and the same is true for Jeff Schreifels of the Veritas Group. Bruce Birch is going to talk about how to create partnerships and innovate. What we talked about today, he's going to go deeper into that. Eric Anderson of the Healthy Nonprofit is going to be talking about how to make a B, C, and D plan for when Plan A doesn't work out. And then for monthly giving, we're going to have two people talking about monthly giving, Erica Wastrop, author of Monthly Giving, The Sleeping Giant, and Kenita Pierce-Lewis, the founder of a really small nonprofit, about how she started her monthly giving program and has like a better than 80% retention rate with her monthly givers. So, and then we're going to have How to Hire Right the first time with Kishana Palmer. And we're also going to talk about how to integrate your communications and marketing planning and fundraising planning together with Claire Axelrad. And of course, I'll be talking as well. But this is happening in September. We are going to also give you all of the recordings to watch over and over. It's online. You'll get the fundraising planning e-course as well. You'll get Win-Win for the Greater Good, which is Bruce Birch's book. And you'll get new strategies to handle the new fundraising reality. So if you want to go deeper on all the things we talked about today, I would love to have you join us at the Nonprofit Leadership Summit, because we're going to help you succeed. So the coupon code is SOSWEET100 to get $100 off, but that's only good until the end of this month. So it's $297 with the coupon code. If you want to check out register.nonprofitleadershipsummit.com, would love to have you join us. If you have questions about this, feel free to call me. This is my number. This is my email address. I'd love to chat with you more about the Leadership Summit. We do it every year. Last year, people just had the best time, and you can see what they said on this page. And 98% of people said they wanted to come back. So we only have 200 seats. It's selling out fast. I would love to have you join us and really help you focus on what you need to do now with your nonprofit to succeed, to grow, and to change with this new fundraising reality. I want to help you grow. So if you're already booked 2 of those days, you'll get the recordings, and you can totally ask questions beforehand as well. Wow, it's a great package, says Carrie. Yes, it is, isn't it? Yes, it is. So I just want to say thank you, everybody, so much for coming. I'd love to take your questions now. So please feel free to tell me what questions should I be answering right here.
All right. Thanks, Mazarine. That was great. Yeah, we do have time for questions, so send them in. We've probably got about, I'd say maybe 7 or 8 minutes. So if you haven't asked a question already, please do so. And do check out the Nonprofit Leadership Summit. We've been a supporter of that for now a couple years, I think, right, Mazarine? And we just love it.
Have.
Great,
yeah.
Great content, really good stuff. And you record those, right? I mean, they're all online. So.
Every single one is recorded. So if you can't make a session or you can't make a day, everything is recorded, and you can have it for a whole year. So you'll get the value no matter what. Yeah.
Good. So if you're booked that day, you can still take advantage of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Mazarine, maybe you could talk more about buy-in. You know, I loved your slide about maybe cutting out something that's not working. I love that advice. It seems like every nonprofit that I've ever interacted with has some event or something that they do that they just groan about every year when it comes around, but maybe an ED just loves it or the board loves it. I mean, how do you get that buy-in for talking about maybe discarding that one thing that everyone just hates, and especially if it doesn't create the results or is a money pit or a time waste? How do you get that buy-in for ditching those kinds of things?
Well, you have to build trust deliberately, Stephen, because that's something we're not very good at. We're actually going to be talking about it at the Leadership Summit. But if you want a book about this, The Speed of Trust by Stephen M.R. Covey is an excellent book about how to build trust deliberately. And you could say to somebody in your office, I want to deliberately build trust with you. You know, and they'd be like, whoa, what does that mean? Taken aback, you know. But that is often what makes us most inefficient and ineffective, because we're like banging our heads against the wall trying to feel out, how can I convince somebody to do what I want them to do, and they don't want to do it. You know, it's like, well, first you build that trust. And what does that look like? You could ask them questions like, what would I have to do to help you build trust in me? You know, maybe you've been really flaky about meeting with them. I know my last boss was pretty flaky about meeting with me, and we would have a meeting every Monday, and he would cancel it consistently every single time. So I had less trust in him for that reason. And so you could ask the person you want to build trust with, you know, what would make you trust me more? And maybe you know, talk to them about what helps you build trust with somebody. And so if you read this book, you'll have more examples of that. But you start with building trust with yourself. And so you keep promises to yourself, and then you start thinking about, okay, and how can I keep promises with other people to help them trust me more? But deliberately make that conversation explicit. So have this meta conversation about your relationship and see this is how you can be way more effective together as a team overall for your entire nonprofit. So this is actually a really, really good question. How do you convince somebody to do anything, you know? So right. I hope that helped answer a little bit.
I love it. And here's a good kind of follow-up, I think, that comes from Carrie here in the chat. You know, everyone's kind of maybe energized by this presentation. What can they do maybe in the next 24 to 48 hours before that kind of excitement? And, you know, I always like your presentations, Mazarine, because they're kind of like a pep talk. What can people do in the immediate future to kind of keep it going?
Yeah, do a SWOT. SWOT's easy. Just put a piece of paper down on your desk right now. Put an S in one corner, put a W in one corner, put a O in another corner, and put a T in another corner. So you have your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. You can go back and look at the slides from this presentation and see the examples that I used from the Meals on Wheels nonprofits. If you are a Meals on Wheels nonprofit, I just did your work for you. But if everybody else is not, right, I know, then think, okay, how can we extrapolate from this to who we are? So I didn't know who was going to be on today, and I didn't, you know, have an advanced list of who was going to be here. So I really, I wish I could have gone into other kinds of nonprofits, but that's the best way to start to take action from today. And that's kind of why I asked that last poll question, because I wanted to see what people would say. Even telling your intern to do 20 minutes of research on your competitors or your collaborators or your partners nationally or regionally is another way that you can take action in the next 72 hours. So if you don't want to do a SWOT or feel like that's a waste of time, do that. And then see how do we compare. Yeah.
Here's one from Christian. Mazarine, you mentioned major gifts a couple times. Christian sounds like they're at a very small shop. It looks like the ED is also the development director, so probably people are wearing multiple hats as usual. And they're about to launch their major gifts program for the first time. What advice would you have for those people who are just diving into major gifts for the first time, especially at a small shop? Because I know a lot of our listeners are from small shops typically.
Well, I would say it's a really tricky time to launch major gifts because of the economic and political uncertainty. I actually talked with Daryl Upsall, who lives in Spain, and he's like, we've had our own economic and political upheaval here. And he said, in times of great economic strife and political strife, you should focus on monthly gifts instead. And I know that seems like counterintuitive to your question, but If you already have a monthly giving program, redouble your efforts in that to build relationships with your monthly givers. They will become major givers in time. Ask yourself, how can I help ramp up giving in our monthly giving program? Like upgrade donors before 6 months have lapsed. Make that monthly gift ask immediately after they make their first gift. If you do that, you will get more loyal donors. You will get longer term relationships and engagement. You don't just have to think, okay, I need wealth engine, I need donor search, and I need to just like start looking at who's rich. Because as we know in this country, half of the wealth is held by 10 or 15 people. So rich people aren't your best prospects. Who is a best prospect? It's the people that give to you consistently year after year. You might ask them if they want to become a monthly donor. So build that pipeline. It's all about building the pipeline. That's what we're going to be talking about at the Nonprofit Leadership Summit.
Love it. There you go, Christian. Work on those monthly gifts first, which to your point is kind of a way of working on major gifts at the same time. You just starting slow and building it up. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, very cool. And Christian's in Portland, by the way, so you got a neighbor there, Mazarine.
Oh yeah, I think we've met actually. Yes. It's a small town.
Well, any final thoughts?
Yeah,
we're kind of coming up against it. I don't want to keep people too long if it's getting close to their lunch hour. So any final parting words of advice, Mazarine?
You know, I'd say that this can be an overwhelming presentation, but I would love for people to just take one or two things from it and think, okay, you know, there are ways that I can take action, and that even if we're small, we can think about how to look bigger, more professional, and more available for our donors, and how can we automate a lot of this stuff if we're small. And it's not rocket science to automate donor communications. It's not rocket science to be the person that's like, let's just sit down and have a brainstorming session once a month with our board and say, look, what else could we try? Could we try this? Could we try that? Try Edward de Bono's 6 thinking hats exercise. One person asked what was the name of that software. It's called Entreport. But Bloomerang, I know from talking with you, Stephen, beforehand, you're also going to be doing some of that automation, the email automation stuff. You can do A/B testing of donate pages, which is incredible. And that's also what Entreport does too. So, you know, definitely check out the Bloomerang software if you haven't yet. I have nothing but good things to say about it.
Oh, thank you. We feel the same way about you.
Aw.
Well, Mazarine, this was great. It was awesome, as always, to have you. And I just want to say thanks to all of you for listening in. I know it's probably a busy time of year. Maybe a fiscal year just ended, and you're doing a lot of receiving and planning the next half of the year. So thanks for hanging out with us for an hour or so today. I hope you enjoyed it. We've got a lot of free resources on our website as well if you want to keep digging into best practices and case studies. And we've got our webinar series that's going to keep on rolling. We're taking next week off, but we're going to be back 2 weeks from today to talk about grants. We've got Mandy Pierce joining us, a super smart grant expert. And if you've never maybe dipped your toes into the waters of applying for grants, or maybe just want to kind of up your game, check this one out. This is a speaker that came really highly recommended from me. It's going to be a good one. So we'd love to see you on that presentation, or sometime in the future. We've got other sessions that you can register for. Just click on our webinar page from our resources section. You may see some other sessions there that get your juices flowing. So Mazarine, thanks again. This was really awesome to have you.
Thank you so much for having me again, Stephen. And everybody, feel free to contact me. Thanks again for coming today.
Right on. Look for an email from me in just a couple hours. I'll get you the recording and the slides, and hopefully we'll see you again in 2 weeks. So have a great rest of your Thursday. Have a safe and fun weekend, and we'll talk to you again soon.